Here we go.
Um, can I ask that you engage your wife here somehow on a little job for me, John?
Okay. Should I be scared?
No.
Okay.
Your wife works in a pet shop, right?
She does.
Pet supplies.
Hmm.
Would you ask her if she has any bear spray there? And if so, could she pick me up a big can of bear spray?
Bear spray.
Yeah, I need bear spray. We have bears.
You have bears?
At the Coupe de Carpe, we have pigeons, and now we have bears. Now,
Oh, good
mind you,
times.
we've had bears before. A couple of years ago, a bear attacked one of our outdoor feeders. What they do is it's a big steel pole, about an inch thick steel rod, and the bear is so big and so strong that they just bend the rod right over, and then they grab a hold of the feeder. Two
Yeesh.
years ago, the bear not only bent the pole right over, but took off with the feeder. We never were able to find the feeder. The bear took off with the feeder. Okay, but this time the feeder is there, but it's all crushed. The pole that holds the feeder is down, and the feeder itself is all crushed all over the ground. So very clearly, we've got another bear. Now, a couple of years ago, this bear they caught the wildlife people caught this bear or one bear and took it off to the wilds. I surmise of Algonquin Park. So we thought, well, the bears are gone, so we can leave these bird feeders out at night. But very clearly, we cannot. We'll once we get a new feeder. Hello, Richie's. But if your wife, seriously, if your wife has a bear spray out there, if they have a bear spray in that store, see if you can pick me up a can, okay? Be
Something
just
something tells
handy.
me being in the city we're not likely to find that for you, Lowell.
Well, we have bears in the city, so I think that the two women who live here, excuse me, excuse me,
You okay?
would appreciate knowing that at least somewhere in the house is a bear spray. My wife Debbie likes to take long walks, and I think, honest to God, sometimes she worries about a bear in these walks because
Sure.
we're this wooded territory here. So if she has a bear spray, I'm serious. If she has a bear spray, I'm sure she'd feel a little bit more comfortable. I can hear her say "yikes" in the background. Anyway, so much for bears. Um, John, this here we go again. I mean, this becomes more and more unbelievable all of the time. So we learn this morning that so far this month, and I mean, we're only on the 16th day, so the month is only half over, but already this month, and this is right from the government source itself, we have allowed 33 airplanes into Canadian airports from Delhi alone with COVID passengers aboard, just from one city. As you know, India is having a terrible problem with some of these variants, and we allow still planes are landing on a daily basis from Delhi, and they're landing from many other places that are very heavily infected with COVID as well. So 30, we do know that because they told us that 33 airplanes so far this month have landed, most I would imagine in Pearson, maybe at Vancouver, I don't know, but 33. Now, how many passengers? I mean, 33 airplanes with passengers. How many passengers? We don't know. Heaven would only know. And you can be sure that planes are arriving from other cities with COVID passengers as well. One of the problems is, of course, that in many cases, these are the variants that they are bringing here. So, I mean, we've got to be honest here, okay? This much more contagious variants, all of the various variants, um, the, these obviously have arrived here from other countries. They have crossed our borders from Brazil, probably from the United States back in the bad old days, but now more recently we know coming in from Delhi, and they are spreading out very clearly. The variants are now taking over in Canada. They're much more contagious, and in some cases appear to be more deadly. But where did they come from? Well, they didn't come from here. I mean, if you're talking about the UK variant, if you're talking about the South African variant, the Brazil variant, etc., these have come here from other countries. Well, the government, Trudeau says, we don't have to worry. We can allow these airplanes to land here because all of these people, when they come, are quarantined. Well, wait a minute. Seems to me that there are two major problems here. Okay. Number one, we're still allowing airplanes coming in from countries like India and others that are having a terrible time with COVID, particularly the variants. I mean, why we haven't closed our borders to those planes, God only knows, long ago. But secondly, very clearly, whatever precautions we are taking, the isolation, the quarantine, etc., is not working. How do we know this? Well, it's not working because very clearly these people are spreading the disease. If the precautions were working, they would not be spreading the disease. We know they're spreading the disease, damn it, because the disease is spreading. And it came from these people coming into the country. We allowed them here. We claim that we're giving them all sorts of precautions, isolation, quarantine. Very clearly, we're not. We're not not making sure that they are quarantined, or we're not supervising. We are not doing the job. And as a consequence, who pays the price? Business, the whole country. More deaths, skyrocket. We're going to get more restrictions this afternoon, probably around 2:30 from Doug Ford. We're going to talk about that a little bit. And in many cases, what's happening, these variants are taking over. Well, they're taking over because, number one, we allow them into the country. And number two, we didn't make sure, even though, don't forget, I mean, if they know that there were 33 airplanes with COVID passengers aboard, then very clearly they knew that it's there. They were able to monitor and find out, yeah, we got COVID passengers aboard here. So they knew they were there. It's not as if they snuck in the border. They knew that they were there. They've identified it. But they didn't supervise. They didn't make sure that they didn't spread. It would seem to me, in light of what's happening here, you got an airplane coming in, in this case, let's say Delhi, because that's the one they've identified, and that there are 33 planes with COVID aboard. You would think that they would make sure that those people are surrounded and taken to some place absolutely fully quarantined and supervised. Take them to a jail cell someplace. We're supposed to have hotel rooms, but obviously we're not supervising. We allow them here, and then we don't make sure that they don't spread it. And as a consequence, we're further bankrupting the country, driving business out of business, suicide, all the problems. And whose fault is this? Our good friend with the curly forehead, the cute little lick over his forehead, Justin Trudeau. This is a federal responsibility. Our airports, the decision to close the airports is strictly that of the federal government, Justin Trudeau. The responsibility to monitor these people, to quarantine, to make sure that they are in fact quarantining, is the federal responsibility. Not doing it. Just one more little bit of incompetence, folks, that's costing us dearly. Costing us dearly. Terrible, terrible failure on behalf of the Trudeau government. Along, of course, with the major failure of not properly ordering vaccines. More and more evidence that, in fact, we don't really have contracts with these companies. What we have is some sort of an arrangement. Some people say it's an option. That's probably true. But an option that says we will get some of these vaccines if and when they become available. Very clearly, many of these vaccines are not becoming available, certainly not in large numbers. We just got news this morning again that Moderna is cutting its supplies by about one half. Whose responsibility is this? Justin Trudeau. No, I mean, this is it. Now, the problem here, of course, or one of the problems is that poor old Doug Ford, he's the guy that's getting it in the butt because he's the guy that's got to make the decisions concerning the lockdowns. Trudeau's the guy that's responsible. He lets people into the country with disease, doesn't follow them up. He doesn't get enough vaccines here so that we can look after ourselves. So he puts all of the responsibility on the provinces, the premiers. And so the premiers have got to be the bad guys, right? the premiers have got to be the little Satans. They're the ones that got to do and they're the ones getting all of the criticism. Trudeau floats off. Nobody seems to be very concerned about him. We're going to reelect him, et cetera, et cetera. Meantime, Doug Ford's got to deal with this. I mean, it's what's happening in this province. In fact, not just here. BC is having a terrible time as well. So is Quebec. I mean, they tell us that is so bad. We're now reached almost 5,000 new cases a day in Ontario alone. And if we don't do something to change it, they are predicting that it could go somewhere to 12 to 18,000 a day. Now, I know some of you people poo-poo and say these projections haven't been right before, and in many cases they haven't. But in this case, they have. They predicted that we would reach about 5,000, and by damn, that's about where we are now. And it's escalating every single day. So my question, certainly one of my questions to you, and I would love to hear from you, either email, text, or a phone call. Not silly side. I think it's time that we got some serious answers here. Okay, you're mad at Doug Ford. I see a lot of criticism. You don't think we should have lockdowns. You don't think we should have masks or whatever it is you don't think. What should we do? If you're Doug Ford confronted with this terrible outbreak, I mean, it's so bad, as you know, they're closing down the Riverside Hospital on Tuesday, this coming Tuesday, so that the nurses, et cetera, there will be able to spread to some of the other hospitals to help us. They're sending patients from Toronto and to all the other places, including Ottawa. The number of COVID patients in the Queensway Carleton, and in fact, all of the hospitals, and in particular to the ICU, are just skyrocketing. So if you're Doug Ford, you got to make the decisions. What would you do? It's all very well to be critical. I'm critical. I wonder about the lockdowns, but it's easy to be critical. Anybody can criticize. But what would you do if you were Doug Ford? What do you think Doug Ford should do? Don't just send me criticisms. He shouldn't have done this, shouldn't have done. Okay, maybe he shouldn't. But if he shouldn't have done that, what should he do? What would you do? Would you just let it go? Do nothing? What would you do? That's the problem here. Somebody has got to make the decisions. We have a totally incompetent, bumbling, fumbling, callous ignoramus of a prime minister who has led us towards the path of disaster here. We have skyrocketing infection rate of variants that are just, driving us crazy here. It's Trudeau's responsibility, but the guy that's got to make the decisions what to do in the case of Ontario is Doug Ford. Okay, I'd love to hear from you. I hear from you all the time about all the things he's doing wrong, and you may be right, but what should he be doing? John, give us once again. Let's go through the phones and the texts and so forth.
Email is lowell@blasttheradio.com. He is on Facebook if you're following along there. Also on the Lowell Green fan page. We can get the messages from there, and I'll read them on the air to Lowell. You can text and you can call 613-413-2217. Saw a comment earlier saying I don't want to be on hold forever. There's one line in the studio. It's a cell phone, so you won't be on hold for long. Again, the number here, 613-413-2217.
So I'm looking for suggestions. Doug Ford's office listens to this program. Doug doesn't. He doesn't have the time. But his office listens to this program. So take part. What do you want Doug Ford to do? Your premier, you sit back, and many of you sit back and criticize. Your right, your duty, in fact. But what should he be doing? What would you do confronted with the crisis that we've got here? Or maybe you don't think there is a crisis. If you don't think there's a crisis, you should check with a nurse at one of the hospitals. John, we've got some emails coming in.
We do. Lots of comments. They've been pouring in since we started the show, but here we go to your question. Ford needs to call out Trudeau like he did a week ago, says Lisa. Arthur, Ford should get and take advice from real doctors, not rubber stamp what the medical bureaucrats say.
See, that kind of, excuse me.
Mm-hmm.
See, that kind of advice is, it's useless. What you don't think you should be taking advice from these people? You should be taking advice from those people. What would you do? Who would you take the advice from? The medical community in this province is recommending even tighter restrictions. They say we got to do something or our hospitals are going to be overwhelmed. It's just too easy to say he shouldn't do this. What should he do? What would you do? Go ahead, please, John.
Keep the lockdown on longer to get the numbers until control and herd immunity is gained. Vanda says Doug Ford is doing the best he can with the times. My only wish is that he had not opened things up the last time. The numbers are far too high.
That's a valid complaint. That is a valid comment. Thank you very much. Go ahead.
Let me see. Oh, they're moving so quick in Facebook right now. Regarding the Riverside Hospital, they say it's not a regular hospital for the last 10 years, so I don't know how many personnel they could send to other hospitals. Well, as many as they can, frankly.
What's the point of that? I mean, I don't understand the point of that comment.
I don't understand it either.
Yeah.
Lisa says, I say publicly name and shame the violators of regulations. Let's find out who those Kempville protester asshats are. Nina says Trudeau should be at each airport to welcome all those arriving planes without a mask and made to shake each and every hand. Maybe then he would finally wake up. Let me see. He should have a panel of advisors appointed by His Majesty and simply relay the message. Schools need to be closed for the rest of the year. Everyone who's not frontline should be working from home.
Okay, there's a legitimate suggestion. Please remember now, the Ford's office is listening to this, so that letter writer thinks that we should close the schools permanently. Okay, Go ahead, John.
Yep, and I'm trying to keep up because they're coming in fast and furious here.
Good.
Yeah, which is great. All of this, of course, available at Lowell's Facebook page. Dean says, I think it's getting to the point. The roads in and out of the GTA might need to be blocked and only allow essential travel like food supplies. It sucks for the GTA, but that's where most of the cases are.
Okay, see, he raises an interesting point. I know for a fact that there's a great deal of discussion underway in Ontario and some other provinces. Should we close our borders entirely? There's no question in my mind that we should close our foreign border. We should not be allowing airplanes from COVID countries in here. I mean, that's just a no-brainer. But the next question is, should we shut off travel between provinces? That's a very valid question. Go ahead, John.
We've got a call. Richard is on the line. Richard, go ahead. You're on with Lowell Green.
Yes, Richard.
Yeah, you're asking for a bit of feedback for Doug Ford. Yeah. And I would suggest perhaps that we increase the ICU units in the province. You know,
they are. They're increasing by 220. The problem there, Richard, is it's one thing to increase the ICU beds. It's another thing to find the staff to staff them.
Right. That's obviously you'd have to staff it as well. As you say, it's kind of useless to have empty beds with no one to actually do the work.
Yes.
So yes, you'd have to do part and parcel, obviously.
Yes.
You can't do half a measure. You got to do the full thing. But I think
you can see the dilemma, though, eh? I mean, you can increase the number of beds, but where the hell do you find the staff to look after them? That's the next problem. Yes, Richard, go ahead.
Yeah, well, that's what I would suggest, anyways, is to do the recruiting and get the staff, and try to basically gear up. I guess would be the word. To try to get everything.
What would you do to stop
able to sort of cope with? I mean, imagine it's going to blow the budget, of course, but I don't. I don't really think more lockdowns are going to do anything. As you pointed out earlier, if people are coming into the country or flying in with the virus, I mean, why are we punishing ourselves?
But let me ask you this, though:
we're not really doing a tight lockdown anyway.
Richard, excuse me, sorry. But it still begs the question. It's all very well. I agree with you. We have to obviously increase hospital accommodation, but that doesn't deal with the spread. What would you do to try to stop the spread? Have you any ideas there?
It's really difficult, to be honest. I don't really see an easy way to actually, to deal with it. I mean, it's the virus. I understand mutates every 10 hours. There's like literally hundreds, if not thousands, of variations of it. You couldn't make enough vaccines to cover all the variations. That's
as a matter of fact,
as you pointed out as well, this idea that you should wait 4 months. I don't know about that either. If that's logical, if the virus is mutating as quickly as they say it is, how waiting 4 months, how's that going to help?
Yeah, here's the
guess.
problem, Richard. Sorry, let me get in here. The problem here is that we don't have enough vaccines to give
exactly.
everybody
That's
2
another
shots.
problem as well.
Richard, thank you for your call. We're running a little short. I really appreciate your call. Thank you very much. I got to get a word in here for Shields. Now, I told you last week that the government rebate program on appliances ended as of April 1st. But I'm going to tell you that right now, Shields has a great sale. If you go to shields.ca, and particularly if it applies to appliances, you're going to see some great savings there. They have a sale of many items. You can save, I'm just looking through the website right now, you can save up to $600. And I'm going to tell you, if Shields says that you're going to save this kind of money, it's a real saving. It's not just, add on here and subtract. These people are honest. They do what they're supposed to do. And I should also point out, we're sooner or later, we're going to get some warm weather. Yes, Shields handles window air conditioners, portable air conditioners, a new modern type, and dehumidifiers. And they've got all of the latest electric and gas ranges. They've got something here that I don't understand it, but I'm sure that many of you do. They've got, just as one example, induction ranges with air fry. I have no idea what that is, but it sounds very modern to me. Have a check it out, folks. Shields.ca. You will see everything they've got in the way of appliances and other items, and you will see the saving. Big sale right now at Shields. Shields.ca. Thank you, John. More emails coming in.
Sorry, Lowell, microphone was down. Quick note, bear spray apparently available at Canadian Tire, aisle 30 on Heron Road. Canada has some as well for you. Thank you, listeners. We appreciate a little levity today. To your question about Doug Ford, Nancy says, make it illegal, totally illegal to have protests, tighten up everything. Lisa says, we need mobile units for vaccinations. Connie says, yes, close all the borders and air travel. Jamie says, no, please do not close the schools for the rest of the year. Our poor kids, enough is enough. They have to be back in there for their own well-being or else. Anthony says, if China can build hospitals in a week, then give it a month. We should be able to build a hospital. Anne says, find the personnel to do the tracking and tracing of the source of the outbreaks. Ask for military, perhaps. Some of the comments.
We're running a little short of time. I want to point something out. The consequences of all this terrible negligence by Trudeau is bearing fruit. I mean, we see what's happening all around, and it's going to get worse. I just want to tell you that the United States has just announced that fully 60% of its population has now received at least one vaccine shot. Most states, the infection rates have dropped drastically, and as a consequence, many of the states have virtually opened up again. In fact, this comes as a great shock to a lot of Canadians. The Canadian infection rate right now is higher than the infection rate in the United States. As a matter of fact, the Canadian infection rate is skyrocketing right now and is higher than most nations in the Western world. That's where we're going, folks. It's not only what we see today, but it's what's coming tomorrow. Our infection rate is skyrocketing, while the infection rate, let me give you an example of it, of what vaccines will do. I've gone through this before, but a lot of people, apparently including the Prime Minister, aren't aware of this. In January, in the UK, the infection rate was about 650 people infected every day out of a million. Okay, so 650 out of a million every single day. The most recent, after more than 60% of its population been vaccinated, most recent figure for the UK is not 650 per million. It's down to 38 per million. Why? Because they've been vaccinated. I repeat, in January in the UK, infection rate 650 per million. 2 days ago, down to 38 per million. Right now in the UK, they have the lowest infection rate in the entire Western world, including all of Europe. By the way, excuse me, the infection rate in the UK right now, 38. Here in Canada, over 200 per million. Folks, I'm not making this up. This information is available to everybody there. Not only that, it's not only the number of people who've been vaccinated. Listen to this. In the United States, I repeat, 60% of the people got at least one shot. And they're vaccinating about 4 million people a day. But not only that, and this is really the key figure, 30% of Americans have had both shots. They aren't delaying 4 months there. They are delaying 21, 28 days. So 30% of the American population now fully vaccinated. I want to point something out. I received my first vaccination on March 24th, which means that if we were to follow science, if we were to follow the manufacturers, I should be getting my second shot, my final shot, next week. That's what the science says. 21, 28 days. No, I don't get my second shot till July 14, if we're lucky, if we have enough vaccines at that time. David's on the line. Yes, go ahead, please, David.
Yeah, I don't know if you've seen the latest polls, but somehow Trudeau's at 40% now.
Well, I don't know. I don't know which poll they seem to change all of the time.
No, but
there's not much question that many people seem to think he's doing a hell of a great job.
I know. And the guy lies constantly. I mean, he's lying all the time. And like today, they announced that we're not getting our Moderna, but Pfizer's going to give us an extra $2 million or whatever it is. And who the hell knows if that's going to come in? He's always got a card up his sleeve that it never comes true, of course, but. Like, I don't understand what's wrong with the people of Canada. Are people become that stupid or what?
Well, there's been so much talk about the big rollout, the big vaccine rollout, et cetera, but it's just not happening. Hey, look, excuse me, David. Do you have any idea what percent? I told you that 30% of the Americans have received both shots, fully vaccinated. Have you any idea what the fully vaccination rate here is in Canada?
Oh, I know it's around 2.5% or less. I already know that.
It's 2.3%.
I mean, it's absolutely ridiculous. And what's the guarantee you're going to get your second shot in 3 months or 4 months, whatever it is? There's no guarantee of that.
No, there isn't.
And then what happens if you got Moderna, and then they have no Moderna, and all they have to give you is Pfizer? Can you take that? We don't know the answer to that question.
So, David. You're a thoughtful man. If you're Doug Ford, what would you do now? I mean,
well, the one thing I would do, and I don't know, maybe they are doing it, I'm not sure, but my neighbor is a pharmacist, and he's got lots of AstraZeneca that's sitting on the shelf right now, not being used. And maybe we should go into these warehouses, have a whatever it's, like set up some kind of shop there, and let's get these people working in these warehouses, Canada Post or whatever. Get them vaccinated. And if it's AstraZeneca, and some may not want to take the AstraZeneca, but some will definitely take it, and remove this 55 age crapola. It's affecting females more than males. Let's get these guys needles in their arms, and I'm sure that would go a long way, because there's a lot of AstraZeneca sitting on the shelves right now, not being used, and we've got to get that stuff out.
Thank you, David. Some good suggestions. We're almost out of time. I've got to get a word in here from my other sponsor. And once again, I want to thank them. And I ask people who are listening, watching, if you can support it. They're supporting me. They're supporting this program. They're supporting independent thought. And if you have a chance, I would ask that you support them. They're local businesses, highly reputable. Particularly, we're dealing here with Centennial Glass, for example. Been in business since 1967. Very well known, highly regarded, great workmanship, and great prices. Shop local. Give the local people a chance if you can. Don't line up at a box store, for goodness sake. I still see them lined up at IKEA, etc. Give the business, at least give them a chance. I mean, if you find that they're better prices someplace else, I don't blame you. Okay, if there's a big difference. But I mean, at least give the local people a chance. Give them find out. You might be very surprised. CentennialGlass.ca. Centennial Glass on Industrial Avenue here in Ottawa and in Renfrew. Yes, John.
Just a couple quick comments before we let you go for the weekend, Lowell. Ford should press banks to temporarily hold off on mortgage and car payments. Lots of people are laid off right now. That's one of the ideas being put forth. An email from Rob, who says, unfortunately, I don't think we have any choice but to start locking down the way we did last March. I didn't support the lockdowns in the fall or over Christmas because I felt it caused more harm than good. However, it is the new ballgame. The variants are far worse, and hospitals really are getting overwhelmed. And the reality is, we're not going to have vaccines anytime soon, and we're not going to get any help from the federal Liberals.
Just want to thank you all very much. Some very good comments.
Lots of comments today. Really overwhelming, Lowell. You should see the comments.
Yeah, really appreciate it. Yeah. I really do. I just want to once again remind you that at long last, Line 5 negotiations have begun. The governor of Michigan says she's shutting down Line 5, which essentially would shut down Ontario and Quebec on May the 11th. So on April 16, the federal government decides maybe we better do something here, and they're negotiating today. God knows what's going to happen here, folks. I just pass the good news along. Have a nice weekend. Thank you. We'll be back.
Lowell Green, live on blasttheradio.com. Show info and links at blasttheradio.com/Lowell Green. Can't join us live? Subscribe to the Lowell Green podcast. Available on Apple, Google, Spotify, and more. Or ask your smart speaker to play the Lowell Green podcast. Join us live weekdays at 2 p.m. Eastern on blasttheradio.com.